Celebrating 10 years of award-winning car talk, this is the In Wheel Time Car Show. Today, coming to you from the Loopy Tortilla out here on the Southwest Freeway.
Yep.
Between Shepherd and Kirby. This is Loopy number 2. We are your all things automotive place. Howdy, along with Mike out of this world, Mars, King Conrad DeLong, Jeff Zeke, and Chief Engineer David Ainsley. I'm Don Armstrong. Today, again, we're coming to you from the Loopies for the Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise In. We're here till 11 o'clock. Still plenty of time to cruise in. Just stop by and see some of the beautiful rides here today. Mr. Mars.
Speaking of which.
Yes.
Sitting right out there, just out of our eyesight, that white 61 Studebaker Hawk. Gorgeous.
It's not out of my eyesight.
Well, I've got to walk here.
I noticed
gotta
it when he
lean
drove
over.
in.
Yeah, we saw him come in. And Harvey Grodjesk.
That's correct.
Close, huh?
Close.
Harvey
is the owner.
Spell your last name.
Grodjesk.
You know, meet Jeff Zeken. There you go. I think we're kind of, I don't know, somehow, some way there's.
Mine is DZIEKAN.
Well, mine was shortened because my father decided to Americanize it.
Oh.
And that's the American version.
Well, the proper pronunciation.
So,
Don't ask.
besides all of that,
He used to pronounce it Mars.
right. So, the Studebaker Hawk.
Yeah.
I think I've only seen probably 4 or 5 of them in my day, but I will tell you that my dear friend Puss Wilson's brother, Kenneth Wilson, actually had one back in 68, 69, and his sat lower to the ground than yours. I don't know why, but he always bragged about the fact that he couldn't drive over a beer can without it scraping the bottom. Have you had a problem with anything like that on your car?
No. I restored the car. When I first bought the car, which it was a New York car, and came out.
Are you from New York?
Originally from New Jersey, actually, but I'm not proud of that. So I said I moved to New York and I started living there.
It's Joyzy where the boys go choip choip.
He knows.
I'm a New Yorker.
Yeah,
he's a Long Islander.
Yeah, so it was being driven by the original owner in the town I lived in Larchmont, New York, and I saw the car at the light, and it was sitting there smoking and doing what Studebakers did, and it was low to the ground, and it had a lot of issues. But I ran up to her at the light, and I said, "If you ever want to sell this car," she was in her 70s at the time, "give me a call." And about 2 years later, I got a phone call from her.
Oh, wow.
Decided to sell the car, and I said, "Okay, I'll take a look at it." Well, it had no floorboards in it anymore. Had no trunk in it. It had all rusted out.
It's a New York car.
The fenders had holes in it, but it was still running. And her local mechanic said, "Look, I can't pass this car on inspection anymore." He said, "Even your plywood boards across the floorboards had rotted away."
Oh, gosh.
So I bought the car, and I bought the car for $200.
Oh, my gosh.
I was the
And now $200,000 later, he's got a fully restored Studebaker.
And I was the high bidder.
At $200.
At $200, I was the sucker because, and so it was an 8-year restoration for me.
Wow.
I did it myself.
Did you really?
I did the car myself.
Magnificent job.
Except the paint, and I had the paint done, and the car went through a little drama. I moved down to Houston. The car was still up in New York. I gave it to a shop to have the transmission done. They took the car over to a transmission place, and then the owners got into an argument.
And your car was between it.
I was between it, and so I had to go back to New York and work all that out. But then the transmission shop, when they returned the car, had scratched the whole sides of the car. So anyway, I brought it down to Houston and got it.
Beautiful car. I love the wide whites on it.
Yeah.
So tell us about the powertrain and stuff that's in it.
Well, it's original 289. Of course, the Hawks back in '57, they had a supercharger. They had the Paxton.
R2.
Well, that was
Avante.
That was the Avante. But in '57, it just had a supercharged Paxton. So Studebaker bought Paxton, and that's why they started putting it on the cars.
Okay.
And they owned a whole series of things. I think I actually owned Clark vacuum cleaners. Studebaker had a whole line of mechanical products. So I bought the car. It's $289. It's an automatic, very basic
Two-speed?
car. It's normally 2-speed.
When it wants to shift.
Right. But it does have a low in it that you manually can put in. So it's a 2-speed transmission, but for the snow and the ice. And it was set up so you could rock the car in and out of the snow, where they put the reverse and the low, and you moved it back and forth, so you didn't have to go all through neutral.
How interesting.
Yeah, so it doesn't say parental power, park,
right.
reverse, neutral, drive, and low.
Yeah.
So they did that, but Studebaker was going. They didn't have a lot of money. They had bought Packard by then,
and there was a shared body-ish to a Packard.
Right.
With the Hawk, but the whole front end of it kind of looked catfishy.
It kind of looked, it looked like a tuna mouth car, but that was just a modified Hawk. Because in '53, that car style really didn't change from '53 to '61 because they couldn't afford to do all the dyes for the sheet metal. So the fins on that were screwed on to the car. And they would change it.
Really?
Yeah. Those fins, if you take all the molding off.
I never knew that.
It's all screwed on.
So year to year, as they would change the fin design, that was just a bolt-on.
That was just bolt-on. And
I learned something new every day.
We all did.
Right. Of course, the car originally had no fins, so it had that curved back.
Right.
And fins became popular, so they started screwing fins onto it. And they didn't have the money. They made some money with the Lark. They came out with the Lark.
Right. Yeah, remember that.
Prior to the Falcon and Corvair. But as soon as Ford and Chevy caught up the next year, again, they were in trouble. And they came out with the Avanti, which was the Raymond Loewy design.
Right.
They stuck him in a couple engineers in a room down in Palm Springs, California.
Rough place.
Yeah, and they locked themselves into a motel room, and 3 weeks later they had the Avanti, or 4 weeks later they had the Avanti style. And then it went up to Studebaker, and they put it out. Studebaker made some financial mistakes, and the Avanti survived after Studebaker didn't. But by '65, I think Studebaker was bankrupt.
Yeah,
and that was it.
What a great story. So, how long have you had the paint job, the restoration? How long ago was that?
I started it in '91. I finished it in 1999. And the one interesting thing is I have to honor the lady that owned it. Her name, you think I have a hard name? Her name was Ennis Ingeltinger.
Ingeltinger.
Ennis Ingeltinger. I guess it was Dutch.
Yeah.
And that car came with Studebaker made individualized plaques for the owners. And
so do you still have Ennis Ingeltinger's plaque on the car?
Ennis Ingeltinger's plaque is still on the glove compartment.
Was her plaque a little bit longer than John Smith's
right.
plaque?
In fact, she had to pay an extra $100 for the car just because they used so much more brass to do that.
Well,
was that before spell check?
That was before spell check.
It's spelled any way you like.
Well, I think that it's commendable that you, sir, are the second owner.
Right.
And that you still honor the original owner in the car as well. That's a cool piece to the story.
So the underpinnings of the car, anything special with that? Problems in restoration or anything?
No, Studebaker parts, actually, because they didn't change design for so many years. All the parts are readily available, not so much for chrome and anything that was made from pot metal. That all disappeared, but the
But the
drivetrain,
floor pans and stuff were okay when you were doing it.
Yeah, the floor pans you could get from, they're not original floor pans, but the Studebaker had enough of a following that they have people that do reproductions.
Repops, yeah.
And that people laugh because when I learned to weld on the car, so but I didn't do spot welding because they didn't trust it. So every panel in there is full weld all the way around. I think there's about 50, 60 pounds of weld in there. But it's held up. It was a repaint in 1999 is when I put it on the road, and I haven't touched it since.
Wow.
I did have a rear wheel fall off, broken axle on it.
Wow.
And
is that the original color combination with the?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say turquoise, but it's not a blue, is it?
Yeah. I guess I'll call it a sky mist blue.
Okay.
It was matched its original colors.
Wow.
So it was white with that blue, and it was a two-tone. And you could get it in blue, you could get it in red. They had.
And that body style was actually quite popular, I'm assuming, for the aerodynamics at Bonneville as well. The Hawk, there's a lot of cars to this day that run Bonneville in that Hawk body.
Yeah, and the Hawks, the one thing is Studebakers are not expensive cars, in value. They compared to a Chevy or a Ford, you want to buy a 61 Ford or 61 Chevy. If you look at the pricing on Studebakers, even restored, they go for a lot less money because I guess they don't have the following that Ford and Chevy do.
Do you do all the service work yourself, or do you take it somewhere?
Now I take it from, I'm 71 years old. I'm reached the point in my life.
Understood.
I'm not climbing under the car, and I don't have a lift. So, I have a friend out, Tom Teskey, does a lot of the work, a couple of the shops around here. But it's an easy car to work on.
And you live around here?
Yeah, I live over in West University area. So, yeah, it was
do
a quick
you
drive.
go to a lot of cruise-ins or car shows?
I don't do car shows too much. Cruise-ins. I'm well past showing the cars.
Right.
And
What brought you out today?
Me.
Oh,
yeah,
of course.
Josh.
He called me on the phone last night and said, Don, you going to be there? I said, yes. He says, I'm in.
Because you're his Huckleberry.
Actually, it was my wife. She said, these
out of the house and go
remarkable
do something.
radio guys are going to be
That's
there,
what it
and
is.
you have to.
Where are they?
You have to meet them. So
Well, the other thing is proximity for you, because this is close enough to the
Right.
house, makes it kind of easy to pop the car
yeah,
out.
and today, being it was overcast, we have another car, a 57 T-Bird. So it's convertible, and I said I'm not running around trying to put the top up on that. And the Studebaker, we've taken it on some really long drives around Texas, and friends have come up. So we've put 1,000, 2,000 miles on the car on a
Weekend trip.
little
Great.
week trip. Yeah.
Well, the cool thing about it is I'm sure everywhere you stop, people come over to talk to you about it because it's a beautifully designed car. To me, I've always liked the style of it.
But the fins on the back are bolted on.
It's the beauty of it.
I never knew that.
That is the coolest. That's the coolest story ever.
Yeah, and
Who would have known?
And you have to learn how to hide those bolts, so all the chrome
Chrome
stripping
trim,
does a good job.
Absolutely clever.
I
would
never
have
knew that.
Me either. Never have guessed that in a million years.
That's what happens when you don't have money anymore.
Well, but there is a passionate Studebaker crowd of people
Followers,
out there.
yeah.
Right.
I'm a member of a couple of their online Facebook pages and stuff because I've just loved the look of the Hawk, but the story of Studebaker as well. So it's pretty interesting. I'm learning stuff listening to you.
And I mean, Studebaker started out as a wagon maker
Right.
back in around 1860s. So I think they were making.
I wasn't around
wagons.
back then.
I was.
Were you?
I
was
was.
Don.
In fact, that was my first, dating vehicle was a
Got it.
horse and
Studebaker
carriage.
wagon.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah.
So but we have a good time with the car, and it is unusual.
Oh yeah, very much so.
And today, a lot of people don't even know the Studebaker
Story.
story or that it
Branding,
even was a
yeah.
brand. or that it had a marquee.
That,
to it.
and when you get to our age, we tend to forget that because it's been around all of our lives, but it went out a long time ago, and I don't think that anybody, certainly a millennial on up, would never know what that is.
Yeah, the story of some of the orphaned brands isn't told to enough people.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you stop by and talk to us today. We really appreciate it. Thanks for the education.
Very much so.
And if you guys need any kind of fin screws, bolts, I've got a good stock of fin screws and bolts.
Very
just
nice.
in case.
Well, we hope to run into you again soon.
Okay.
It was a real pleasure. Thank you so much
Thank you
for
very
stopping
much.
Thank you
by.
for having me.
You bet. I know that we have a little feature that we need to get in, but I have to turn the page because my memory isn't as good as it used to be. It's time for This Week in Auto History.
Dun, dun,
and now,
dun.
ladies and gentlemen, here's Conrad DeLong with This Week in Auto History.
Yeah, as soon as I find it.
Oh, so I'm not by myself then. Uh-huh.
So
Busted.
this week in auto history, kind of a different week. A couple of sad stories to tell. The first in 1905, the first aerial car ferry was put in operation in Duluth, Minnesota.
Wait a minute. What? Run that? What? An
Aerial car ferry. As soon as the picture comes up, you'll see it. And it was a bridge that was put over the canal in Duluth, Minnesota, that the cars got on this ferry, and not a ferry like you think of. It would cross like a bridge when there weren't any boats coming by. So you'd see the little ferry down
Like
there.
a cantilever.
Yeah, like a cantilevered bridge, and then they'd load cars up on it, and it would cross on a rail system to the other side when there weren't any boats coming by. The weirdest thing in the world, and I just thought that was kind of a cool little story. In 1923, there's a close-up picture of the ferry itself. In 1923, Firestone Tire and Rubber Company in Akron, Ohio, began the balloon tire production. So, in honor of Jeff,
There you go.
the balloon tires were air-inflated tires versus the solid tires that they had used prior to that.
Balloon
I
tires.
don't
That's
know
what they
whether to-
called them.
I
Back
don't
in
know
the
whether
day.
to take that as an insult.
Jeff sold those things
Yeah.
not too long ago,
Yeah.
the balloon tires.
And then in
tire.
1934, Ford Motor Company, and remember, Ford Motor Company was almost exclusively a Firestone tire
Yeah.
vehicle.
Yep.
Ford Motor Company introduced white walls in 1934, and
Look
then
at
you
that.
can kind of see the progression of white walls well, you went a little fast
Oh,
there,
sorry,
Jeffrey.
sorry.
You can see the
My
progression
fingers are
of white
cold.
walls from the thin white walls to the wide whites, and then back to the thins again. So
Are we going to have to find somebody to do your
The
job?
finger.
He can't
You know,
keep his
and by
fingers
the-
warm.
fingers
And
are
by the
warm.
50s, the white walls were pretty standard on most cars, and it's kind of hard to imagine a 1953, 1954 Corvette or 54 or 55 Corvette without white walls on them, because that was standard equipment on them. And then in 1947, and actually I think today is the anniversary day, is when Henry Ford had passed away.
Yeah, we see that.
I mean,
Do
again,
you have a picture of him in the
In a
grave
casket.
or
I
something?
didn't want
What
to.
is this?
I just,
And would he
I
die
just
in a
left it
fire
at
or
that.
what?
Yeah. No, he just passed away from a cerebral hemorrhage. So he had a brain aneurysm.
We think that he had that several years earlier.
But
that's
also
another story.
today, in 1947, was the Texas City ship explosion.
God, that was terrible.
That was horrible. You know, in the middle of the morning, the SS Grand Camp, which was docked at the port, was unloading ammonium nitrate, and which is a fertilizer, and it caught fire, and the whole Texas City Fire Department and everybody from the shipyards were there putting it out, and then it exploded. It killed everyone except one of the Texas City Fire
Didn't the
Department
water,
members.
they put water on it, and that's what spread it or ignited it?
It spread it on the ground, and then it mixed in with the fuel from the fuel barge that was there, and that's what caused the real big explosion. What was it, 860 some odd people had passed away. They had damage 10 miles away in Galveston.
Have you ever been down there? There's a marker for it. The anchor is there. and
The
all that.
anchor was shot a mile and a half
Yeah.
through the air. So yeah, been there. In 19, where are we at here? How'd we get to that one?
That's right after the fire shot.
Oh, well, I goofed that one up.
No, what's this one right here?
No, go to the next one. In 1964.
We always blame it on Jeff,
I
but
know,
apparently it's not.
Exactly.
In 1964, on April 17th, Ford Mustang introduced the two-seat mid-engine sports car was unveiled at the Henry Ford Museum in Flushing Meadows, New York. And
Maybe he was sitting in the car.
Yep. And then at the World's Fair. So the World's Fair was the kickoff for the Mustang, and they sold 22,000 Mustangs on that day, on opening day of the introduction of the Mustang. In 1965, the Chesapeake Bay Bridge tunnel opened, connecting the east side and the west side of the Chesapeake Bay. I think it's an interesting story because you got this big bridge that comes to a tunnel, and then it goes under the water. The oddest thing in how that works, and then the ship channel through the middle of it.
Well, because it's cheaper to do it that way than to have the whole thing underneath the water.
But it's 17 miles of causeway that comes to this where you duck down under the water. I don't know. I just think it's the weirdest thing to build the tunnel out in the water as opposed to on the side of the water. I don't know. Anyhow.
Because it's probably the deepest part of the channel, don't you think?
Yeah,
well,
which would be the
that's where
most
the
difficult
ships go.
place to build the tunnel.
So would
Well,
that be
because you got to get the boats through there.
Oh, no, I understand why
we have
they
that
did
here
it.
in the Houston Ship
Yeah.
Channel called the Washburn Tunnel. You
Yeah.
ever been in it?
I thought they closed the tunnel.
Not the Washburn.
What's the one on 146?
No, that's been gone a long
Yeah,
time
that's what
ago.
I thought. I used to take the one on 146. I hated it. I'm just a little paranoid.
They have a much prettier bridge now.
Yes, they do. It's a very
Yes.
good-looking bridge.
Take
it
the Washburn
Channel?
Tunnel sometime.
Would it be the channel?
Goes to over there in Pasadena. Pasadena.
No, that'd be the Punnel, the Pasadena Tunnel, the Punnel.
The Punnel?
Oh, Lord.
Oh, well, the other picture was
Is
Jim.
there anything else that you want to talk about?
Well, the picture I kind of goofed on was the picture of Jim Clark, one of the greatest Grand Prix drivers of all time. He passed away this week in 1968 in a Formula 2 race in Hockenheim. Jim Clark was one of the greatest Formula 1 drivers of all time, and his entire career in Formula 1 was driving for Colin Chapman in Lotuses.
Hobby.
I didn't realize that.
Did he
you know.
not also drive Indy cars?
Yeah, he was driving a Lotus when he drove an Indy car. That was the introduction of the rear engine.
As a matter of
Indy
fact,
car.
that car is on display at the Henry Ford.
Museum.
At the Henry Ford Museum, a little green thing with the rear engine in
That
it.
British Racing Green.
Oh, my God. And you look at that car and you think,
You were
nobody.
going
I wonder if
200 miles
anybody
an hour
had
on
any idea the technology that went into that car, and it's still used today.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that is This Week in Automotive History.
Thank you very much. All right. We are at the Lupi Tortilla, number 2, on 5969, the Southwest Freeway. It's Tailpipes and Tacos Cruise-In, the once-a-month cruise-in. Normally, we're out at Katy Freeway location, and we're going to be back out on the Katy city of Katy.
Next visit.
City
Next
of
time.
Katy.
Actually,
It's not the Katy Freeway.
let's not get into all that again.
That's
Now,
for the Uber driver.
Dun, dun, dun.
yeah.
It is the Kingsland and Grand Parkway location.
There
Thank
you go.
you. Time now for
In Katy.
the stories making auto news headlines this week. The coronavirus outbreak in Michigan, which has really ramped up here in the past week,
What a mess.
which has emerged as the worst U.S. hotspot, is surging in a critical factory for Stellantis, the Ram pickup,
Oh, boy.
with an estimated 10% of the production employees out for COVID-related reasons. About 630 production workers were absent on Tuesday of this week because they either tested positive for COVID-19 or were in quarantine, according to 3 people familiar with the matter. That's up by roughly 200 workers from a week ago. People said there represents roughly a tenth of production workers as the plant in Sterling Heights, Michigan is known. Michigan, by the way, had 55,091 new COVID cases in the last 7 days.
And they're shut down. Michigan is, the whole state's in quarantine. They're shut down. Texas is wide open.
And David's going to go up there for his summer vacation again.
Are you?
Okay.
And he may be up there for the entire summer.
Yeah, that's
He'll
it.
have to quarantine 14 days going in and quarantine 14 days coming out and have 1 day on the lake.
Subaru has issued a pair of recalls affecting more than 800,000 late model vehicles in the U.S. to repair problems relating to engine control modules and rear stabilizer brackets. First recall involves 2017 to 19 Imprezas and 2018 to 19 Crosstreks to check and potentially update the programming of the vehicle's engine control modules and replace their ignition coils, which could degrade over time. That's kind of bizarre. Also recalling 405,000 Forester and Crosstrek models to examine and retorque the bolts on those vehicles' rear stabilizer bar, which can come loose over time.
Yikes.
Toyota recalling 279,000 older Venza crossovers because the supplemental restraint system wiring in some of them may become damaged with regular use of the driver's side door. Well, don't you have to use the driver's side door
just to get in and out of it
all the time?
Twice a day.
Let me go sit in the passenger side for a couple of hours just for the heck of it.
And they've already recalled that airbag, so.
Yeah, the recall will cover certain 2019 to 15 model year vehicles. In other recalls, Chevy Tahoe, Chevy Colorado, GMC Canyon, and a bazillion Mercedes-Benz. Alfa Romeo Stelvio, it's on recall, as well as the Lincoln Aviator, the Porsche Macan.
Going to tell us what the recalls are?
It's too.
But the trick is safercars.gov on the internet. Yeah. Bring your insurance card with you. Plug your 17-digit VIN into it. And check your car for recalls. That's safercar.gov.
So did you happen to see? Look, this is what I did because of all of the Mercedes that are being recalled.
Basically all of them. I need to check for Angela's GLC.
Yeah, you do. Yeah, you want to check on it now?
You heard Ford Motor Company is shutting down more of their plants, building pickup trucks. 5 facilities here in the United States and 1 in Turkey for chip shortages due to COVID.
And here's an interesting thing, and this will be our last story for this hour.
That's my hint.
It is your hint to shut up. Sorry, didn't mean that.
No, shut your face.
Shut your face. That's right. Luxury brands raced out of the gates in the first quarter, a time of year when they typically underperform following their seasonal year-end marketing programs. Overall, U.S. luxury sales rose 20% to 547,903 cars and light trucks in the quarter, significantly outperforming the broader industry's 12% increase. With the premium surge, the annualized light vehicle sales pace in March jumped to 18.1 million, which is pretty much typical for a usual year, at least the past few years, according to Motor Intelligence. The luxury sector's share of industry retail sales climbed to 15.2%, a record for the first quarter dating back to at least to the start of this century, according to J.D. Power.
George Skelton was asking, was the Mitsubishi Pajero ever recalled?
Pajero.
You can't say.
You only recall it late at night.
Yeah, you do. Remember, there's a difference between the word Pajero and what you said, and we want to go with the Pajero, I think, brand.
The pejorative.
Can lead them to water.
Yep.
Hey, blame George.
Okay, thank you, George. All right, it's time now to take a break. Thank you very much for joining us today on the In Wheel Time Car Show, coming to you today from the Loopy Tortilla #2 out here in the Southwest Freeway. Quick break now, and we will be back right after I look at my sheet to figure out what commercial I'm going to play.
Bayway.
There's many of them, but I'm going to play this one.
Winning the highest sales satisfaction award among all luxury brands from J.D. Power in 2020 tells you everything you need to know about your Lincoln purchase from Bayway. Bayway Lincoln is where a premium buying experience is a priority, and you're invited to feel it yourself. This Houstonian-owned premier dealership is managed by Lincoln Stahl, a seasoned member of the Bayway family. If it's online, in person, or in your own driveway, Bayway gets you to the luxury level you deserve. Bayway Lincoln is on the Gulf Freeway at Fuquay, just inside Beltway 8. Visit BaywayLincoln.com today. Tailpipes and Tacos is Houston's premier cruise-in, and you're invited to join in. Whether you're a cruiser or spectator, Tailpipes and Tacos is the place to enjoy made-to-order breakfast tacos, fresh coffee, and mingle with Houston's fun car people. Mark your calendar for Saturday, May 15th for Tailpipes and Tacos at the Lupi Tortilla Mexican Restaurant in Katy, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. Tailpipes and Tacos is free and everyone's invited. You'll see collector cars, hot rods, customs, magnificent originals, and resto mods all at one location. Cars from all over Southeast Texas cruise in and show off in a friends and family event at the Lupi Tortilla Mexican Restaurant on the Grand Parkway at Kingsland Boulevard, just south of I-10 in Katy. Drag racer, car enthusiast, and Lupi founder Stan Holt brings you Houston's hottest cruise in, Tailpipes and Tacos, Saturday, May 15th, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. at Lupi's in Katy. The In Wheel Time Car Show will be there too. Get your ride ready, and we'll see you at the Tailpipes and Tacos Saturday morning cruise in, May 15th, 8 to 11 a.m. at Lupi's in Katy, weather permitting.